Hello and welcome everyone. This is the first episode of Balkan Nerd Podcast. I'm your host Alex Metz. I'm a German dude. I'm studying political science in Marburg, and the reason I'm starting this podcast and doing all of this is because back in 2017 I started a voluntary service with an organization called Loja, based in North Macedonia in Tetovo. And I worked in the region, or like in the city, for a year on issues with multiculturalism, civic activities, civic society. And yeah, I want to find possibilities to bring the things I've learned here, and especially the onlook of young people from the region into the broader discussion in Europe, because I think since this region is not in the European Union, but is in Europe, we should definitely continue and talk about all the issues that the civic society here faces, because I think in Western Europe we can learn a lot from the people here, and also work together towards a better version of Europe. With me today is my first guest, Gaddaf Mehmedi. We got to know each other through the work at Loja, because he is a local volunteer, so he's actually from the city of Tetovo. And I also should say I am currently in Tetovo in North Macedonia. Once again, I came back. And Gaddaf, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, my name is Gaddaf Mehmedi. I'm a local volunteer from Tetovo, also a friend of the aforementioned dude, and anything you will hear about me, if he says good things, believe it. If he says other stuff, he is lying. And yeah, I'm a volunteer with Loja since 6 or 7 years now already. Alex is pretty much the second generation of volunteers I know, and now I'm on the sixth. And yeah, I'm happy to be part of this podcast and to tell you more about this place. But even though we have a lot of problems, somehow it addicts people. I mean, look, we have Alex back. That's a proof.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much came back to the region because I enjoy working here, and I like Gaddaf is not my only friend in the region by now. And yeah, there's just a lot of good people here who are very, very insightful on topics of social change, social problems, societal problems. And I really enjoy the exchange with people from the region and to talk about how and why we should improve in certain aspects. And one of those aspects we want to talk to you about is specifically infrastructure in the city. We are today going to talk a lot about Tetovo and problems with infrastructure. And Gaddaf has a very special onlook on these problems and issues, because for a long time now, Gaddaf has been using a wheelchair to get around the city. And we have witnessed a lot by just walking and going through the city together that it's not always easy to come around, get around, and get to the place where you actually want to go. So, I mean, we also don't only want to stick to the topic of getting around the city, but also other issues that the city has. But more on that later. Yeah, Gaddaf, my first question would be, what is for you the most pressing aspect when you are in your wheelchair going through the city? What is the most hindering, or what would you, if you could choose one thing, what would you change?
Well, in this case, if it's from the side of the city planning or the municipality in this case, it would be building ramps, and to make it clear, building ramps on both sides of the pavement. This will maybe sound funny to you guys, but sometimes in Tetovo they have the creative way of building a ramp in one side, but they forget that they also need to make an exit where you're supposed to go off. And the second part, which would be from the people's side, is that a ramp is not a free parking spot, and it shall never be. These are, first of all, the main two things that would need to be changed regarding that topic. And if we want to dive deeper in the topic, we will also realize that a lot of institutions here, and probably almost every place where someone would need to go, doesn't really have the access. And even if it does, their so called planning usually is done in a way which doesn't really help someone or is really dangerous in that way. Yes, there are people who help. Yes, we are a helpful society. Yes, you will not be stuck in the middle of the street, but there is a difference between people's own personal kindness managing and allowing you to get by and the thing itself functioning.
Yeah, so I mean, just to specify a bit more, going through the city, it happens a lot that we are like, or especially Gadaf is just stuck on sticking to the road and actually going the same place all the cars are going. And so like he has to actually literally go through traffic to go to the place where he wants to go. And yeah, that's just a situation that for me as an outsider is just looks weird and especially dangerous from time to time, and it feels like this is not the way it should be. And you touched the topic of ramps. My follow-up question would be, especially for like the really like necessary things, like I don't know, the banks, the post office, or I don't know, places where you have to, I don't know, pay the bills for water and electricity. How easy are they accessible to you, and can you actually go to these places easily, or do you have to, I don't know, plan in advance on what kind of resources you need to actually go to the place, or are there, like, how open are these places to you?
Yeah, Alex, thanks for the question, and I get your point. Well, there are none, and for at least in my case, I have the way out because I can use the crutches to move around, which makes me park the wheelchair outside and then enter with the crutches. But that doesn't mean that the place is accessible to wheelchairs. And even worse, if I have to take in consideration, I don't know, someone else living in this city who can maybe not use crutches as well, they would be completely stuck. All the aforementioned institutions, almost none of them provide the necessary ramps. Even the ones they do, there will be some kind of problem with it, where it's either not functional, or there's a door that someone has to open, or anything, or they somehow installed a bench in front of the ramp entrance, or any dumb thing they can come up with. For example, we can take the police station. They have a ramp there. First of all, the ramp is steep, because by law and by logic in this case, there should be a rule to how steep a ramp really can and cannot be, so you don't just flip over. And in the police station, there is one ramp which could be barely called, well, usable. But after that, they decided that it's a really nice idea to put 3 chairs in front of the ramp so people can sit. So I'm still trying to figure out how I can jump over the 3 chairs. I mean, I've played enough GTA San Andreas, but I'm still trying to figure this out. Oh, and speaking of GTA, I remember once I tried to go to the hospital, and the ramp there is more than 45 degrees steep, even more. I can even say 60 at least. And me, with my crazy ideas, like what's the worst that could happen, I tried to go up and enter the hospital, but that's where I actually ended up flipping in air with a wheelchair, and I landed back somehow. And I still have a problem because when you do this in GTA, they give you $20 as a bonus. The $20 didn't appear there, so, well. And yeah, no, none of the institutions have access. But, like, guys, let's be honest, this place is not that bad. There are some places that have access. For example, the places where that are apparently considered as necessities here, which do have access, are casinos, betting points, maybe some cafes, but a few. But yes, as you know, like the heart of Tetovo city planning, which is building a casino everywhere. I remember once while waiting for Alex, he was like, "Where are you, Gadaf? I'm waiting for you in front of the casino." I'm like, "Be more specific, Alex. Which one? Because there is one every 5 meters. Like, how am I supposed to find you?" So yeah, somehow all these places have ramps, are on the ground floor. You can directly enter, but the places where you actually would need to enter, they don't. And another fun addition to this is that the place where people would need to go to fill, I don't know, documents for, I don't know, getting a wheelchair or anything related to these kind of topics, they sometimes happen to be on the third floor with no elevator. So somehow all the people that would go there would literally need access to that, but they won't really have that. And they somehow decided that the place where you do these things should be on the third floor. But short question, $1 million question. Can you guess what's on the ground floor of the same building? Write in the comments, and whoever said the betting point or the casino will win.
I don't think there's anything to win yet, but yeah, but I mean, maybe to add another positive note, and this time like an actual positive note. A couple of weeks ago, Tetovo implemented the first ever public transport bus lines in the city, and actually the buses are quite nice and modern, and you can get into the buses with your wheelchair too, right? Can you?
Yes, somehow they decided to buy buses after we were close enough. I was like thinking when other countries make it to space, we would get a bus. You know, we are keeping up with the times. But now, yes, we do have public transport. Finally. Yeah, they are new and look kinda nice, but the point is where they stop and whether the place where they stop is compatible with the ramp thing of the bus that someone could open, but the city is not planned for the bus. There is no proper waiting point. There is no proper even timetable and all the kind of things for the buses. There is still no proper described destination or a table that says from where to where or any kind of stuff. It's like everything here is a gamble. And we also used to have a bike lane for a short amount of time, but I will let Alex give you more information on that first, then we get to more wonders of our city, let's say.
Yes. So I mean, like the paints of the bike lanes, they are actually still in place. But there also were poles screwed into the ground, like just simple plastic poles to mark that there's a bike lane where you should not park your car on. We also have to talk a bit about politics here, because the old mayor, her name was or still is Teuta Arifi, and she was voted out of office a couple of weeks ago, and now it's Bilal Kazami in office here. And one of his first decisions was to take out the plastic poles that separated the bike lane from the normal car lane, and this rendered all of the bike lanes pretty much useless because everyone sees them as an additional parking spot, and it's almost impossible to get from point A to point B in the city, like wherever it should be, by using only the bike lanes, because you'll just have to go on the road or the pavement or anything else than the bike lane because it will be blocked. That's a certain. Yeah, and I think I'd have to ask you for the details on this one, but there's this story that the bike lanes kind of were viral because they were done pretty badly. That's at least what I've heard, and that basically this public shame made them need to improve the situation. Could you tell us more about that exact situation?
Sure, Alex. If you were in Tetovo during this time, it would have been fun to watch. But that's how Tetovo became a meme. At least we're known for something now. And yeah, so what they did is they started drawing the bike lanes, like painting the part of the road red where the bikes should pass and everything. But they started painting over stuff. For example, if there is the road where the cars will go, and then there is the pavement, and there is no ramp there, how like the bike would get and would pass. They didn't think they should kinda, destroy the road first, make a ramp there, then paint a bike lane. They just started painting through stuff. So there was a point where there would even be some boulder thing in the city. They just painted over it, and it became a meme saying that people have to jump over it with their bikes. Well, that's how it looked, because literally the paint went over the rock. So, yeah, and after it became a meme, they decided what they did. Like, they realized what they did and decided it's time to fix it. So they started destroying the roads after they painted and painting them again, which for short amount of time ended up as actually something good, because people now finally had a bike lane. It had the plastic poles that Alex mentioned that would prevent people from parking there, but people then realized that these poles were made out of rubber that could easily bend without damaging anyone. So there were people who were creative enough to run the rubber pole over with their cars, because it wouldn't really scratch or damage their cars because it was made out of rubber. And now the new mayor, we suffered enough from the old one. She was in office for, 3 terms, one can say. And the new one, for whatever reason, decided to destroy the one halfway good thing that happened to Tetovo, at least from politicians, and then turn it again into a parking spot thing. And yes, that also shows from the citizens' side that when given the chance, they simply hurried over to take over the bike lane. Now, someone would say, are the people here that kind of assholes, one might say, that will not care? Well, how I would describe it. For example, if I am passing and I see someone about to park in front of a ramp, and I will scream, shout at him like, hey, wait, what are you doing? And he will realize, and sorry, no, I didn't mean, like, then go back. And it's not that would do that on purpose, but still not conscious enough that he is blocking the street for someone, that he is doing something that damages others. The point is, yes, when faced with it, no one will be such an asshole to be like, yeah, I want to park here, so what? But the point is, not everyone can be there at the moment where they decide to park and to remind them that it is a bad thing. This is the part where the problem comes from the citizens also. To realize that there are people on bikes, there are people with trolleys, there is someone with a wheelchair, there is someone with whatever that needs a ramp, and thinking they should block it. Or even worse, sometimes this mentality that appears here, well, it's just 5 minutes. What's the worst that could happen? I just need to pay a bill here or do one thing there, and then when they come back, it's just a casual excuse of, oh yeah, sorry, but I wasn't planning to take long and I would be back in 2 minutes. No, a ramp is a ramp. Still, the biggest problem remains from the state that it's not providing them, because for a person, you can change their mind with a 10-minute speech. But I cannot have a 10-minute speech to the street, so it gives birth to a ramp out of nowhere. That's the difference.
Yeah, but actually, I think with the lack of awareness you brought up, you actually kind of brought a good segue into another thing I wanted to talk about, because there was a Loya project, like a project from the organization that we both know each other from. It was before my time. Was like the volunteer generation before me. They printed small signs where the symbol of wheelchair access was crossed out, and they just hanged it at places and at institutions that were not accessible by wheelchair. And from what I heard, actually some of the institutions and some of the places got then renovated and got a ramp. But could you add more insight in this, Gadaf? Because I think you also were there and took part in the project, right?
Well, yeah, Alex, actually, no, this project happened a bit before I joined Loya, but still, nevertheless, it was a good project. What I heard in all the follow-ups, and yes, some institutions might have taken action, but the question still remains: if they decided to make a ramp, was the ramp good enough? If the ramp was good enough, is it still free and not blocked by something? And as we earlier said, can you really access everything of this institution? Because there are some places where they build a ramp, you can enter, you're at the main entrance, but then there are 3 more stairs in front of you. So you kinda enter the place, but still cannot exactly go everywhere where you would need to go. You can find someone there who will help you, or I don't know, offer his help. But as I said, personal helpfulness or personal kindness of someone or personal whatever of someone is not a solution to things that the state itself, the municipality itself should provide for people. Whether people are helpful or not helpful or anything related is not an excuse for the competent organs to be like, well, yeah, you can find a way around. I or anyone can find a way around based on their own creativity. But that's not a solution. I was for 2 semesters in exchange program in Germany, in Marburg, where Alex also studies now, and I was there, and things were quite different in a good way. These things were not even a topic, not even a debate, and not just the ramps or the traffic, but we are stuck in a place where political debates are whether your neighborhood will get enough water, whether someone will pick up the trash, whether someone will fix a road, or I don't know. No, these are basic living conditions that should be there. These are not a political statement, let alone to serve as a political promise, which is how politics is done in Macedonia. You get speeches by whichever party, and they will be like, yeah, if you vote for us, you get more tap water. Woo! Progress. And as I said, like in Germany, everything was there. I would use the crutches because I would feel like, I don't know, maybe a bit of activity or whatever, but I could access everything to the smallest detail. We had the building where the Studentenwerk is, the office that deals with all the student issues, and they had a ramp, had an elevator, had access to every single office they have. It's not just a ramp to be there and then you realize you cannot enter the other places. The point is not whether these institutions built a ramp at the entrance. The point is how much of that place can you access? How many of these rooms and offices and bureaus and whatever they have there you can access? It's not you're in the building. The point is, can you do anything you need to do inside that building? And I think you guys already have an idea of all of this and how things here in Tetovo function. And not to make this boring by complaining or sharing all of this, I will give the microphone back to Alex.
Yeah, but I think also, especially on this topic, complaining is actually a good thing, because a friend of mine once told me a very interesting sentence that I think makes a lot of sense here. It's not only about being sad about the things you don't have, but it's also about being angry for the reasons why. And I mean, if we look at the political situations, not only here in Macedonia in general, but also and especially in Tetovo, there are a lot of reasons to get angry. And I mean, Gaddaf just mentioned a couple of them. For example, the access to water in your home that is from time to time just interrupted. Or also sometimes the quality of water isn't necessarily the best. Yeah, and I mean, that's just as a person who's not from the region, I mean I kind of get where the problems are coming from, but I don't really get why there's not more outrage, if you can say it that way. Because I mean, as Gaddaf has said, these are basic human needs, and they obviously aren't met in the best way possible. And another topic is the collection of trash and also the amount of trash. Also, how and when it is collected.
Yes, we also have a problem with the trash. And the funny thing is, you have so many things to complain about, so it becomes a game. Which one do we pick? And, well, yeah. I mean, in Germany or in a lot of other countries, there is a way you divide trash. What gets thrown as paper, as glass, as this and that. Here, the only way you divide trash is whether the trash has been thrown inside the trash bin or in the street outside the trash bin. And yes, the trash is not collected enough times. There are not enough services to collect the trash. There are not enough trash bins where the trash should go. There is, Alex knows, can explain even better for this. In front of our organization, in front of Loya, there is supposed to be a big trash container which never, my love, have I seen empty. The only time the municipality decided to clean that place is when there would be a visit by, I think, the German ambassador, and this is the only time where they decided, well, it's the time we should clean the thing. But you cannot run a city or a country with the mentality of clean the house before the guests come, otherwise let it be as if it's an animal barn. Not to say anything about the people, but the way how it will end up with all the trash all around. Even the people who want to fight about this, their effort goes in vain. We have a lot of activities, a lot of people, activists, anyone, anything that wants to fight against this. But it will simply not be possible because you will see trash just accumulating even more. And sometimes even from people, as we spoke with Alex. There is a lack of awareness, yes, but it's a mutual suffering from both sides. The municipality never provided the solution, and the people agreed that it should be a mutual suffering kind of relationship, where they also at this point just throw it wherever they feel like throwing it, And then this mentality will be developed that, yeah, but it's not me. Look how much trash there is everywhere. Yeah, but it's you. It's you and exactly you. Because me, you, and the 2 million other citizens of this country are what make this. And this is not a statement only for this country, it's for anywhere in the world. It can be one person more, but it could also be one person less. 10 million people counting themselves as one person, that's 10 million people. So that's where you get the results. And yes, everyone will agree, well, humans maybe are not the main pollution makers. Yeah, we had bigger problems in Tetovo. There was the Yugochrom and the big protest that happened about it, because at a certain point we ended up as the most polluted city in the world because the factory wasn't using any kind of filter. And how and why? It's all allowed by the government. And I think for this topic, Alex can actually provide you with more information.
Yes, actually I can, because I took part in actually quite of a lot of debates where this was a topic. And the way I got it is that there were protests from the city, because I mean we all know the pictures from Peking and we all know how bad it looks, and you now have to imagine that Tetovo was worse than that, like way worse. And I mean, of course, there's then public outrage because people want to enjoy their health and their like clean breathing air. And so basically, the protests and I think even parts of the government, um, they issued an ultimatum like you have to implement air filters up to this date. And the response by the company was they simply shut down. They closed the entire thing, cut the like entire production, and also through that the workforce, because their argument was implementing air filters would just be too expensive, and we don't want to implement and spend money for basically your health, which is fucked up to say the least. The company was producing furniture, and yeah, actually up to that point it was also quite of a profitable business, um, but apparently not profitable enough for like providing, yeah, at least not as polluted air. But also I want to come back to the point where you talked about this divide between personal responsibility and municipal responsibility, because I mean I really really see it the same way as you do, because I think a person can only be held to account to a certain level, and if the state is, or the municipality in this case, is not collecting trash, then it's also hard to understand why you personally should bother, even though you know that the trash will not be collected, and even if you throw it into the like regular bin where it is supposed to go, you know that there is a high chance that either the wind, a stray cat or dog, or whatever reason will it will very likely fall on the ground at some point and then just end up in traffic, get scattered around the city. And it's not, I mean, even if you do your best, it's not enough, because the municipality itself is not there to support your will towards cleaning or keeping the city clean. So I really see why people are just resignating and not striving towards the better from themselves, because I mean, why do that if you're not supported by anyone? Yeah, and also I want to add that here in Tetovo you could also go or take the argument the other way and say that at least the trash is occasionally collected here, because in the mountains surrounding the city there are a couple of villages where trash basically isn't collected. I mean, for example, there's the village of Vershala. On the way to the village, there's like right before you enter the village, there's a curve, and the curve is pretty much where the entire village leaves their trash, because it's like a local point. It's not in the village, and since there's no one collecting trash up there, the trash has to go somewhere. And for some reason, I personally don't know the reason exactly, but they just chose this as like their place to throw the trash. And from then on, the like the slope where they put the trash, it leads into the river that also runs through Tetovo. And yeah, you can really see that the river in Tetovo is pretty badly polluted and also really full of trash. And especially if it's raining, a lot of the trash gets just s- uh, flown out from the mountains and ends up in the city. And I mean, also I have to say here that a lot of trash ends up in this river in the city also, because again, this municipality isn't doing enough in collecting the trash, and trash is basically all around in the city. Because I mean, as I said, even if you put it in the proper place and try to do your best, it will end up being scattered around the city.
And yes, and to go back to the previous topic, which we have to make a bit more known, the air pollution thing. There have been a lot of protests organized, organizations involved. There has been us, me and Alex, through Loya, yes, then Eco Guerrilla, also an organization that really fought against this topic and was trying to make it known how grave and how dire the situation is. And like that, thousands of people already died. Babies would be born with lung problems because of all of this pollution. And at one point, it became a bit more known after this was presented of how it is. For example, one action involved of writing the number of people that died because of this in coffin shaped things, where you would actually see that it's not just the numbers, because the worst thing that happens to humans, human understanding, awareness, and empathy, is when you hear numbers or how it's interpreted in the media. It's like, oh, 200 people died. That does not allow you to make the emotional connection to that. I really wish no one went through anything. But if we stop for a moment and we make a list of all the people we know, of all the people dear to us, you can easily fit them in that number or way less. The point is, all this thing that happened as a manipulation, oh, just this much has died, or just this, or just that, and people even accepting to suffer from it. And actually, the way how it was stopped is not because the government one day decided, oh, well, apparently people died and we're the bad guys, so we should stop this. It stopped because activities had been held and organizations took part, where they even organized a concert in front of the trash point, which was this one place where all the trash would be dumped and with no means of collecting or recycling it. So a concert was held there with an orchestra to make this pollution, this what's happening in Tetovo, like public and known to the world. And for luck, it became known to the world, and it even ended up in some world famous magazines and newspapers. And after that, in a way, the eyes of the world were turned towards Macedonia. And the only way to get Macedonia politicians to do something is when the, how they say it here, when the West is looking at them. The only way where they decide that, oh, we should participate or change something, it's when it becomes known to the outside, as one might say, that there is a problem here at home. This is the mentality of living and existing for the neighbor's sake in our politics. Yeah, they changed it a bit, but with the amount of problems here, that's not the only thing that has to be changed. There are a million more battles to be fought. And one thing that needs to be immediately stopped and never allowed to come out of the mouth of any politician here is then they say, oh, well, we did this, or well, we did that. Well, yes, maybe you did that, but how did you do it? Did you fulfill your promise completely? And what about the 1 million other problems we have here? Because by this logic, it's like you have a room full of trash, and you take 2 banana peels and you throw them in the trash can, and you're like, well, I contributed. We threw these 2 banana peels away. Why are you still complaining? Well, no, because you still have a room full of trash. And you didn't solve the problem.
Yeah, I think a good example here, a couple of days ago, the government of North Macedonia decided that every plastic bag you get in a shop should now cost 15 dinar. If I do the math correctly in my head now, that's about 30 cents, like 25 euro cents per plastic bag. To again like prevent the amount of trash, or like to cut down on the amount of trash being openly thrown out into the streets and everything. But then again, that raises the question, why implement such measures when you're incapable of collecting the trash that is there? I mean, yeah, I kind of get that it's a good idea to cut down on the amount of trash, but also you need an infrastructure to handle trash in the first place, and I think that would have been the more pressing decision to make. But it's also a hard decision where you actually need to invest money into infrastructure to make it function properly, and it looks a lot like those are the decisions that are hardly ever made in at least North Macedonia.
Well, yes, but this also brings us to the news that were published now, that it's made public, of how much money the company, like the municipality, is in debt, and that's 24 million euros. Most of it is money that has surprisingly disappeared somewhere and no one knows where. I'm pretty sure someone has a nice villa now somewhere, or multiple villas. And for the people listening, so you get a better idea of what this money means here, it's a city that doesn't even have 100,000 people, and where people will work, have an average job where they would get 250, 300 euros per month as salary. So just wanted to let you guys have the scale of the point being, it's not the same 24 million euro that it would be like its power as compared to Germany or any other country. So yeah, they managed to steal that much, but till now we have as number one the former prime minister who ran away to Hungary with 4 billion euros that he stole. And yes, Macedonia keeps getting better. Dear audience, we have more and more to tell. It's like one of these Russian dolls. You open it, there's another one inside, and then another one. That's Macedonia with the stuff that happened in it.
Yeah, that's a quite fitting picture actually. A lot of these topics require difficult solutions where you actually put some brains into it, and for at least for now, it doesn't necessarily look like that's happening. I mean, maybe we could come back to the more political aspect of things, because I mean, a couple of weeks ago there was the municipal elections, and I mean, probably some of the audience knows about like the entire political fallout for the central government that it bought, but that's, I mean, we'll probably do another podcast episode or something about that more in more detail. And for now, I would like to stick to the situation in Tetovo. Um, what is the, or are there hopes towards the new mayor and him actually implementing proper change? Or to ask differently, what would you wish for as a change? Like, what would actions be that you actually would like to see him do?
Well, the question is really nice, but it doesn't function in Macedonia. And to give people a better view of this, yes, Finally, they managed to overthrow the mayor that was there, and now we have a new one. But personally, I am not expecting anything from him. Not that I want to be politically indifferent, but you realize that here, at least in the Balkans, there is no real thing as political ideologies. I mean, everywhere, I'm not saying the world has solved all its problems through politics. Everywhere deep down it's the same, but at least you have the, whether it's like how brutal it is, how direct it is. Corruption exists everywhere in the world. Why we're in this state of the world everywhere, but here it's open. It's not hidden. It's known. And the very reason why any party managed to remain in the government for 15 whatever years and not lose is because for things that should be your own right, it ends up as something where you need to have connections. People are forced to vote for parties because they are afraid they will lose the job if they don't. Even though if it's their own through their own merit, they still will have to get involved one way or another. And then we come to the other topic where there are a lot of position filled in the public sector or anywhere where it's mostly nepotism, where it is anyone with a high position deciding who should get employed, either all the scandals that have happened, whether the position is sold, whether the position is given to someone they know, whether they took money from someone, or whether they asked for sexual favors from someone, or all the darker and deeper shit we can get into. But yes, even the people who actually want to work in a good and honest way, they will face these challenges, to be forced to side and to take part in this mechanism that is treating the people as pretty much as its own flock of sheep. Can say that they can guide wherever they want and have them do whatever they want. And yes, I've known unfortunately cases or even people that I know that even though they had an opinion and were aware enough that what happens with our politicians is bad, at one point I still heard they ended up voting for the bad guys, let's say. Okay, there are no good guys yet, it's just the bad or the worst guys. But they ended up doing that simply because, I don't know, a family member ended up getting hired somewhere and then they got pressured that they need to provide them with this many votes, which is what happens here in Macedonia usually. And some people have the luck to have a life where maybe they don't get involved in this, but even if someone is one of these people, like, no one shall close their eyes that this happens to many others, which is also a reason why many people flee the country, why everyone is immigrating, why now the German language is almost de facto the second language of this country, by all this euphoria to learn that language, because everyone is turning their head toward Europe or anywhere where they can go and get a job and pretty much get the things which they work for, deserve, and that here they would be deprived from these things. Because there is the difference between living in a country and trying to survive in a country. Here, for a lot of people, no matter what skills they have or how qualified they are, they will simply be undervalued, and simply it becomes a vicious cycle of people escaping. So anyone that would have been good for this place leaves the country, or the good ones that remain will end up being hunted in a way. We can also get on the topic of all the judicial cases where there are open murders, where it's publicly known that even like some political parties are involved and they are still not brought to justice. As we said earlier, this Russian doll goes too far, and I don't want to get Alex out of track now, or you listeners, but whatever you ask for, we can find a story about it in Macedonia. So get as creative as you can.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I would first go to a place not quite as dark, because you brought up earlier the example of the trash bin at the entrance of Loya, like the organization we worked for. I mean, you also talked about the example once the German ambassador came, the trash was cleared, but there also are a lot of examples where Loya had guests that were, let's say, not as pleasant. And I mean, Loya has a history of criticizing the municipality for both the bad aspects of work they do, and also the aspects of work that they don't do, which again is important. But through actions like these, you get on the bad side of the municipality, and so whenever something especially critical was happening at Loya, it was you could pretty much see the dislike of the municipality with the trash, because once something happened, or like some action was taking place that was not favored by the municipality, they would make a big effort to deliberately not pick up the trash, so to make the place look even worse than it usually does. And yeah, I mean, it's luckily not a really dangerous thing, but it still shows uh, the kind of levers the municipality likes to take, even when the action taking place isn't even dangerous for them, or even they shouldn't even bother about it. But of course they do, and they just kind of want to show the power they have, and it's pretty annoying, to be honest, to see that constantly the power is just being abused for personal gains and purposes. It's yeah, but I mean, to be honest, I personally have not heard a lot about the let's say violent crime aspect. So if you want to add more on that, Gadaf, please go ahead.
Well, yes. I mean, there has been the guy of Eco Guerrilla, the organization that was fighting for Yugochrome and pollution and all these topics. He made this known that before he went on a live debate with the former mayor of Tetovo, he said he had planned only one question for her for all the problems there. And before he entered the studio, there was one of the former mayor's guys, or thugs, let's say better, that grabbed his shoulder and was like, be careful with what you say out there. But then he went there, and as they wanted, he didn't make one question, but instead decided to make three, which makes me proud of him. And yeah, these things, this kind of pressure, or things where anyone related to the party, or the party itself, in this case the government, is known to use thugs to intimidate people, to send threats, to tell them to watch their mouth, to all kind of things. Then are the darker stories of where people have been unjustly killed, and then since they already own and control all of the judicial system, because it's the judges that they appointed by themselves, it becomes a mafia system of its own, where they can do whatever they want, wherever they want, and however they want. And even the people that will want to fight them will be afraid, because fighting the government in Macedonia equals to declaring war to a mafia family, because they function the same way. And so anyone that wants to change this place, well, they're really brave for fighting them, but as earlier mentioned, it takes a lot, and you need to have a lot of luck to at least be enough publicly known so they cannot make you disappear overnight. to have at least enough support either by the people that they know you there, or to have to be watched by foreign eyes, let's say in this case, that you are involved with anything from outside. And then, as we said earlier, the magical formula for things here to happen is be watched by the West or anything like that. And yes, then it's not that easy to do things. But locally, if someone decided to stand up and they don't have the support from outside first, things can happen to them, things that they cannot imagine or question. And it's just like that in broad daylight. One might say that they get in trouble they didn't imagine. So there is also this part of our own mafia system. It is not only one party. The party that has been in power is known the most to do it, but anyone that has gone through the system has more or less repeated the same actions. And by witnessing all the politicians of not just Macedonia but the Balkans in itself, because it's pretty much the same story repeating over and over again, what happens when a new politician comes in power is that they develop an inferiority complex. For example, if the state had been ruled for 15 years by the whatever previous party of whichever country in the Balkans, the new guy that comes gets to see how deep the connections or the wealth of the previous guy would go. So he would be like, oh, he had 10 billion amassed and he could influence this and that. So instead of changing things, they develop this, well, I need to secure my position, and now I have to steal 20 billion from these people. So I surpass the previous guy. So yeah, in this case, I am against any of the parties that pop up out there. If there was really something or someone that one would feel that they really want to change the place, yes, I would be with them. Do we have such people? Yes, we do. They are students. There are even people working in different fields that would make a good solution to all of this. But for as long as the places are taken by people that try to make the place theirs, then we don't have a solution. Even when new people are presented, it's usually the same kind of material of these people. It's even the parties in themselves, it's just the colors changing. It was blue, it can become another color. Doesn't really matter, because you feel and see that their intention is just to be the next guy that robs you.
Just so I get what you're saying the proper way, and also the audience. So the way you see it, there, the people who are actually working towards the better and for change towards the better, you see them more in the civic society than in any political party. Right? That's what you.
Yes, the only good people I've seen so far are either in some kind of civic society, and they don't even dare to risk to join politics, because it's something where here in Macedonia, if you join that, you will either be afraid they will drag you in their things, or they will frame you and pretty much ruin you. Yeah, civic society is fighting. You have also people that would make good addition to all of this. People who simply want to do things for the better way. And what is one thing that ruins things in a deeper level? For example, in a certain institution, be it a school, university, whatever it is, I can go and witness and tell you maybe there are people in there that would want to really fix things or that things were better, but the ones on top of them, the ones who made the power theirs, are usually the ones who do not want these good changes. So even if these good people are fighting there, this fight is silent, their voice is not heard, no one will know about them, and they will remain invisible. And from there, the entire institution will get a bad name because the guys at the top are steering it towards a bad direction. Yes, we had a lot of scandals with the university, for example, selling grades, forcing students to buy book, selling diplomas, doing all kind of things. But then you also have really good guys in there that really want to have students a better future and to study and all the good things. But then you come to the point where you see that the ones who should be given the voice have not been given the voice because there is someone above to whom this would make a problem. The change exists. We are not waiting for someone to descend from heaven and to bring us the good people or the good solutions. The people are there. The point is remove the decayed ones and do not allow the decayed ones to hold the power, so the ones here that want to change things can change things. It's not that we don't have the youth. It's not that we don't have people involved in all the civic field. We have everything needed to make this a better place. Just give the chance and the voice to the right people. And please, guys, do it faster before any of the good people feel they had enough and they cannot fight anymore, because they cannot hold that front for all their lives. At least do it before you see them in front of the German embassy asking for a visa to go work in Germany and abandon this country. Because it has happened a lot of times and it keeps happening. Take action now. Otherwise, this will be an endless cycle of people fighting for a better future till they see it's impossible to bring a better future, so let's just go to Germany. Well, yes, no, the point is remain in Macedonia for once, for God's sake. At least Alex came back, so that's something.
Yeah, and I think on this, kind of dark but still is surprisingly hopeful outlook, I think we can end our first episode. So thanks a lot for joining me, Gaddaf. It was a really fine discussion, and I think we touched a lot of topics, and I think we can especially come back to this topic of the abuse of power in the state. But for now, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here with me, and also thanks a lot to the social space Tetovo for providing me and us with a space and all the resources we need to actually record this. And do you want to add something?
Thank you, Alex. And thanks to the space also for providing us, and thanks to the people for listening. We are sorry if we made it too gloomy at once. We want to know you that actually you will enjoy this place after all of these dark things. I'm pretty sure you will meet a lot of nice and awesome people here and have really awesome food. Alex came back for one of these. I'm still trying to figure out which one, but we'll get to that on the next episode. See ya.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on what Gaddaf just said, I mean, I literally came back because this country is amazing, and despite all of the bad things we touched and talked about today, I'm every time I'm here, I'm having the time of my life, and I can really, really recommend to anyone living out of the Balkans or even in a different country from the Balkans, just come to Macedonia and witness it for yourself. It's literally amazing. But on this, thanks for listening, and see you in the next episode.